So it seems like winter is finally over here in southern Idaho, which means that we can finally come out and shoot steel targets again, which is a lot more satisfying than shooting paper and hiking through the snow. Oh, way more satisfying. Welcome back to Sawtooth Tactical, your source for gun news, gun reviews, and the finest in firearms related content. Today, we're talking about shooting steel targets because shooting steel targets is fun. It's satisfying, it's exciting, and it just makes the act of practicing shooting a lot better. So make sure you're subscribed, and I'm going to go over everything you might need to know about steel target shooting. Of all the firearms, accessories, and everything else that goes into gun ownership and shooting, one of the best investments that I've made are these steel targets, and I plan to get a lot more of them. The reason why is because when you hit your target, you can hear it. It gives you a satisfying ring. And when you miss, you don't hear it. You know you missed. So, in my opinion, it really helps with training and helps you get better as a shooter. I love this Springfield Prodigy. So we just got through the longest, coldest, snowiest, harshest winter that I can remember here in south central Idaho. And in the wintertime, the place that I normally go shoot, which I like to call the backyard, it's not really my backyard, but it's close by, it gets closed for the wintertime. And so I have to find other ways to practice, to shoot. And if you guys watch my videos, you follow my channel, you know that I have live fire footage in videos every single week. I shoot 52 weeks out of the year. And so because I don't have a place where I can go out and set up steel targets in the winter, I have to make do with other things. Generally, I'll take like a piece of plywood, some 1x2s, stick some targets on there, and go and stick them in the snow. And that's all good and dandy, but it is not the same. And the reason for that is a few things. So when you're shooting paper targets, if you're paying very close attention, you can see where your shots are. Modern paper targets kind of have that splatter effect where you can see where you hit. But if you're shooting rapidly, it is hard to tell which shots are which, and it's hard to really tell how good you're shooting until you're done shooting and you go look at the target, especially if you're shooting at greater distances. Well, steel targets solve that problem. You can hear when you hit the target, and you can hear when you miss the target, or you don't hear anything when you miss the target. And so, for that reason, it makes it much, much more satisfying to shoot steel targets. And it's a lot more fun. One thing about steel targets that you do have to take into consideration is spalling. Now, spalling is when a lead bullet hits hardened steel, it basically disintegrates, it vaporizes. And to an extent, you have to be safe about it. And that's why one of them is hanging, the other one is slanted at an angle this way. And that's so that spalling goes down and out instead of back at you. It's just something to think about. Oh, it's fun. A couple years ago, I decided to invest in some steel targets. First one I bought was this. This is 1/2 inch thick AR 500 steel, hardened steel. Your steel targets have to be AR 500 or AR 550 hardened steel. You can't just use any old piece of steel you find. You'll get bullets bouncing back at you, or fragments of bullets, or you'll just shoot right through the targets. The first steel target that I bought was like a cheap one that was rated for rimfire, and I didn't realize that. I got it off Amazon, and I shot it with 5.56 the very first time I brought it out, and the rounds literally went right through the steel, putting big holes in them, just like Terminator 2. And, you know, when he hits T-1000 or whatever, and he's got the giant holes, it looked just like that. And it also, you know, it put a hole in the leg that held it up. I ruined the target the very first day I had it. And that's because I was trying to cheap out a little bit and get what I thought would work for what I was shooting, and I was greatly mistaken. So the next thing I bought, again, was this. This is a gong target. This is like a 12-inch, I believe. And this thing is fantastic. If you're going to go with something like this, you can actually do it for a relatively reasonable price. Just shop around a little bit. But I built a stand for it just out of 2x4s, 4-foot 2x4s. I bought a kit, like a sawhorse kit, put that together, put it across, you know, screw some freaking eye bolts up into it. It hangs off that and it works great. Then I spent a little bit more money and got an actual setup. And I know you can't see this from this camera angle, so we're going to back it out a little bit. So this target is about the size of a human torso. And this is also AR 500 steel. I think this one's 3/8 of an inch thick, which I have found is perfectly fine for the rounds that I'm generally shooting. And that includes 5.56, 300 blackout, 7.62 by 39. As long as it's AR 500 hardened steel, it'll stop those rounds just fine. And this came as a whole setup. So it's got a hanger that hangs the target. It's on a spring, so you can see that it can move when a round hits it, and that is very important. It also came with a base. All you need to provide is a 2x4 for the target, you know, to put the whole thing together. And this is great. The base comes off it. It's really easy to transport. So is the base that I made for this one. So I can throw them all in the back of my pickup truck, go out to the range, set them up in a matter of minutes. The main thing that you have to think about with this kind of stuff is that you want to avoid any splashback of bullets coming back at you. And so in order to do that, you either have to have your targets hanging so that when a round hits it, it bounces back like this and all the spalling goes down and out and not back at you. Or something like this where it's already designed into it and it sits at an angle back like this so that, again, all that spalling goes down and out and can't come back at you. That is very important. So we're back here at a little bit greater distance. Let's see if I can get some accuracy out of this Prodigy. I love this pistol. So I think some people are afraid to shoot at steel because of the fear of bullet fragments coming back and hitting them. And so you just need to take some safety precautions. When it comes to shooting steel, you need to make sure that you have eye protection. That is extremely important. Now, most of the time when I'm out shooting, I'm shooting in the sun. A good pair of sunglasses are great. They make ones that are actually ballistically related. Magpul makes sunglasses that are great eye protection. You can also get the clear ones. Whatever works, just protect your eyes. But at the same time, I have never had any spalling actually hit me, and I've shot my steel targets up relatively close. And this is why. When lead, meaning a bullet, hits hardened steel, this is what happens to it. It basically vaporizes, and like if you're doing it in the snow, which I've done before, you could see a line of spalling on the ground afterward. But it basically, the bullet hits, and the Spalling goes down and out, as long as they're set up correctly so it doesn't go up. I picked these up today. These are bullets that I shot today, and this is exactly what happens to them. They hit it and they literally just smash flat and vaporize. And if you're standing to the side of a steel target while someone's shooting, you're in a very, very dangerous place to be. But as long as you're in the right spot, you really have nothing to worry about. You can shoot steel relatively close if you want to. A lot of people, the manufacturers of steel targets, if you look on their websites, they will give recommended distances that they say that you have to be at in order to shoot safely. Well, they need to cover their own butts as far as the legal consequences of someone getting hurt. And that's where those recommended distances come from. Now, they don't come from no experience. Things do happen and things have happened. But I shoot a lot of 9mm handguns. Today I was shooting the Springfield Prodigy because right now this is my favorite pistol. And I'm also trying to get to the 1,000 round point so I can do a 1,000 round review of this gun for you guys. After today, I'm up to 700 rounds on this pistol, and it has been 100% reliable. But you can shoot 9mm relatively close to steel targets relatively quickly without having anything to really worry about. 9mm is traveling around 1,000 feet per second, and it's fairly safe to shoot up close. And that's one of the great things about like pistol caliber carbines is you can practice shooting an AR up close because it's only shooting something like 9mm. Now, if you are going to shoot rifle rounds, when I was looking for steel targets, they recommend that you shoot rifle rounds from no closer than 100 yards. Now, I have shot them much closer than 100 yards. In fact, I did today. I was shooting this 11.5-inch AR pistol. It is chambered in 5.56 or 223, but I don't shoot it as close as I would a 9mm handgun or a 45 or any other pistol round, really. Just because it's moving much faster, about 3 times the speed as 9mm is. And even though the bullet is smaller, this is a 55 grain bullet versus I was shooting 124 grain today out of this, it's moving much, much faster. And so there is a higher likelihood of some kind of splashback. But besides that, it is also more damaging to your steel targets, especially something like 7.62 by 39. And I've even shot steel targets with bigger rounds, 308, things like that, will actually do some damage to your expensive hardened steel targets. You'll start getting pitting. Not sure if you can see the pitting on camera here, but these targets do have a little bit of pitting to them from shooting more powerful rounds at them. You can even see just from these targets, so these are all 9mm hits. These bigger looking ones are 5.56. So even though the 5.56 is a smaller projectile, it is hitting it with much more energy. And if you also look at the shape of it, it's pointy, not round. And so there is just more likelihood of possibly damaging your targets if you're shooting them at a close range. And so that's a good reason to just back up a little. Plus, your rifle platforms are, more easy to shoot accurately from farther away anyway. Now, I was shooting this today. It's got a red dot, but it's also got a 3x magnifier on it, which makes it very easy to shoot from a little bit farther distance and still be accurate. So with steel targets, they say not to shoot rifle rounds at anything less than 100 yards. Now, I'm sure that is mostly just to look out for themselves legally. You do have to worry a little bit more about splashback with a round moving as fast as 5.56 does compared to like pistol rounds. So I wouldn't shoot it nearly as close up as you shoot like your 9mm handgun, But you can still work on CQB type of stuff and just give yourself a little more space. So we're a little farther back here, probably 40, 50 yards. Shooting the AR pistol that I recently painted. I hope you guys like this paint job. I absolutely love it. Like having the added capability of a magnifier for sure. Despite the safety concerns that we've been talking about already in this video, shooting steel is the way to go. And I recommend that anybody that is serious about shooting invest in some steel targets, because it's just going to make you shoot more. And so it's going to make you a better shooter. And the reason I say that is it's a lot more satisfying. It's a lot more fun to hit your shots on steel. You can hear it and you can see it move every time you connect with your target. And when you miss, you don't hear it and you don't see it move. And so it makes you want to be a better shooter. It's a lot more than shooting paper does. That's been my experience in a major way. I have a lot more fun shooting steel, and I seem to progress better. I get better at shooting quicker because of it. And I also shoot more often because I'm enjoying it more, and I shoot more rounds when I go to the range. And so therefore, the more rounds you put down range, the better you're gonna get at shooting. So this summer, I plan to work on bettering my skill set with firearms. And that includes both handgun and other platforms. So the steel targets are a big part of that training. It just really helps you know when you're hitting the target and when you're not. Sometimes you hit it and sometimes you don't. So again, just to recap a little bit, steel targets, a heck of a lot of fun. I recommend anyone that likes shooting and, you know, has this as their pastime, invest in some steel targets. You're not going to regret it. In fact, I think that it was one of the best investments in firearm accessories that I've made, because you use them with all your guns, and it just makes it a lot more fun, a lot more satisfying to shoot. You do have to worry a little bit, nice, and like I said, a little bit, about not shooting up too close, especially with rifle rounds. Just be careful, make sure you wear eye protection, and be safe. But don't worry too much about that. These are very safe. I've been shooting steel targets for years now, and I've never had any kind of injury, any kind of splashback from any round that I've shot at it. I just use common sense a little bit. So use some common sense and you'll do just fine. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you subscribe to Sawtooth Tactical. Hit that like if you liked it. Share this video. Leave me a comment. Do you shoot steel targets, or do you only really have experience with paper? Tell me what you think. If you don't have experience with steel targets, go get some. From Sawtooth Tactical, stay strapped or get clapped.